Hello Loomers, this is Chodaros Designs, Chodaros Bling, and today's tutorial will be one from design from MsLoom on Instagram, and it is called the Minerva bracelet, which is the Latin goddess of art and peace. So this is a hook only design. It incorporates a 6, 8, possibly even 10 millimeter bead through the center, so you will be creating a beaded center chain with every other band being a bead, and beads of your choice for the outside, which would probably be something smaller, such as a 60 millimeter seed bead. So this is the one that you will be seeing me make in the tutorial, and this is the one that I made first. So since I began blinging, I've always been into making bracelet transformations, and I kind of did that on this one, so I chose not to do the tutorial on it since it looks completely different than the original design. So, but I do explain in the tutorial how this one was made, which is exactly the same as this, just with different beads and bands. So you have a couple different options. The one thing that I will say is that, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 14 beads, and I believe I used the same for this one as well. Even though it fit my wrist when I made the single chain, when I added these side bands, it expanded just a little. So I will show you what I mean. It's still wearable, but it overlaps by one bead. So if that's okay with you, go ahead and do it. If not, I would take out one bead from where it fits your wrist. And then the same thing happened when I made this one as well. So you may want to go ahead and get your single chain started before we begin, which again is a bead, plain band to the size of your wrist. So let's grab our supplies and get started. Okay, so everybody has to understand that there are new loomers, intermediate loomers, advanced loomers out there. So I always try to do my best to make sure that any loomer at any stage could make these bracelets. So I am going to show some things that I've done to make this one, even though the tutorial will be based off of this one here. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to create a single chain with a bead on every other band. Okay, so I started mine, but in case you don't know, when we begin, we want a cap band, and then we want a plain band. And this is always my rule. Always want to start with a cap band and a plain band when you're beading. If you don't, and you put a beaded band first, it's going to fall in between your cap band. Okay, so I just have a couple here that I need to put on. So then you take the one end of your beaded band and you slide it through both loops on your hook. Then you want to take that right middle band and push it to the right side of the bead and close it up. So the goal is to make sure that your bead is always in between the two existing bands on your hook. Okay, and then your next step would be to add a plain band and then repeat the process. Okay, so you guys go ahead and work on that. If you, by chance, are able to grab these little flower beads, the link is down below. I purchased them at Michael's. They had, I believe, 3 different colors. The other one is black and white. So, surprising enough, it is kind of a joke because I had bought these a little while back, and Artisan Loom had shown that she had received them, and I told her, don't you dare post those until I do, so I want to hurry up and get them out there. but it's all in good fun. So you want to start out the same with the cap band and a plain band, okay? But first we need to add a band to this. So these are nice. They're really nice. They have a large hole, so adding a band isn't difficult. So we're just going to use our beading thread and find that hole. This one's clear. Stick both ends of that beading thread through. So I am not hesitant just to pull this through. I don't feel like I need to do anything because I know that it's going right through. It's not going to snap the band. Okay, so I'm going to do 2 of those and just quickly show you how they will lay on your single chain. Okay, so you have your cap band and then your one plain band. So this one is just a little bit tricky because it's so big. So you want to stick one end of this in, and then you want to stick it through those 2 loops. So this is one way you can do it, is how we typically do, is we pull that right loop over the bead like that. Whoops. Well, that didn't work very well. Hang on one second. How about if I just show you how I did it? I took off the right band, okay? And you can hold that. And then I put on the right side of that flower, and I want to pull it under the loop on my hook, and then put this back on, and then grab the other end of that rose or flower, and then I want to pull it under the existing band. And that put it in the center like that. It'll look better once we get further ahead. So then you just add another plain band, and the size of the bottom of this flower is 6 millimeter, okay? So that is going to fit in between the chain, and I think that's exactly why it fits very good, or just fits perfect when we're adding them to this chain. So again, I take off the right side, grab the one side of the flower, pull it under the loop on my hook, and then technically this is really what I did, is I would just pull that loop through like that. But the goal is, as always, just to get it in between. So once again, you can see, because it's 6 millimeter, it fits perfect. So it lays flat, and even adding them every other, it doesn't make them bunch up or anything. Okay, so that is how you would add these roses or flowers, and you would single chain them every other band. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. 14 is what I used, and it fits just a little loose. Okay, so they lay nice and flat. All right, so back to this one here. If you're not already finished, you need to get this one done so we can start the next step. So remember, plain band, beaded band, and these are just round 6 millimeter metal beads, and the black cylindric bands. They're very nice to bead because they just fit in here perfect. It's very easy to take that loop over it. And again, you're only making it long enough to fit your wrist, so bead count may be different than mine. So once you have your single chain done, you need to make sure that you have your color ready that we're going to start on the border. And then you would just finish up with a plain band, and then you can either slip knot it or add your C-clip. I know I have one. I like to add a C-clip. Okay, make sure it fits your wrist. And this does not stretch. It does not shrink of anything. When I made this one, it actually got a little bit bigger, and I think it might be because I used the silk bands, which are heavy. Okay, so we come down, and we don't want to start in the cap band, but we want to start in the first loop. Okay, so there's our first loop. We're going to go in there like that, and I'm going to use this ivory metallic. So if you've done my Strass link bracelet or vintage frost, I believe the vintage frost one, it's the same technique. You're weaving in and out, in and out, in and out. Okay, so we're going to put a band in here and capture it, and then we're going to add another band, but before we capture it, we want to come down to the next link in line, which will be the one in between each bead, and then recapture it. Like that. So you should have your band, your chain, link, and your band. Now we want to take another band and pull it through all 4 of those loops. And then close it up. Okay, so that's how we're going to do the entire bracelet. After you close it up with all 4 loops on this band, this is when you pull another band through, and you only close it after you captured a chain link. So we go to the next in line, which is the one with the bead, and then we close it up. And then we add another band that captures all 4 of those bands on our hook. I've got one of them stuck on my hook. That one got stuck on my hook, so it's like behind there. And then you close it up. And now once you have all 4 loops on your hook, or I'm sorry, now you add your second band, and then we come down to the next chain in line and stick our hook through and close it up. Okay, this one looks goofy because my band got stuck behind it. All right, now that we have all 4 loops, and it is a little bit tight, so again, all it is weaving a band in front, behind, in front, behind. So on my vintage frost bracelet, that's exactly how I did that. And then wherever you see your underband, your chain band coming through, that's where my rhinestones came out. Okay, so we just closed that up. Now we need to add a plain band. Go down to our next link in line and then recapture. and then add another band to close it up. So we add the next band and go to the next link in line. So you have to be careful because we have a plain band in between each one. You want to make sure that when you're grabbing links, you're making sure you're grabbing the next one in line. So depending on what size bead that you use, if you use a larger bead, if you can see, this chain is larger than this one here because there's nothing on this one. So you got to make sure you're grabbing the little ones too. So I kind of give it a little tug so I can see where my band is last, and then I can see where my next one needs to go. Oops, I didn't grab both of those loops, I only grabbed one. There we go. And close it up. So to make sure that you're grabbing each one, you can look at the side and make sure that you have every one of them captured. Okay, so I'll do two more and then I'll leave you to finish this up. So it gives it a little bit of a raveled look. But we are going to do this on both sides. So this is considered our first border. Okay, so let's go ahead and work on that. If these do not lay out straight, just give it a pull. If you see a big gap in between, that might mean that you missed a link. So we'll work on that, and then I'll come back down to the other end and show you how to start that side. Okay, so I went ahead and I did my last band as well. So what I'm going to do is just do a slip knot and then put this last band inside this C-clip. It's always the most difficult part of a design. God. Oof. Why is it so hard to add a band? I can remember it snapping in when we first started looming. Well, we weren't doing hook only then either. Anywho, there we go. So that's what you should have. And you just give it a little bit of a tug. Everything should fall into place. And you should see that black, or that center chain in between. So if you were doing one like this, it's the exact same process to the T, exact same. I didn't do anything different. I just used the green silk bands. So you just start at the end on the side, and it's a little bit of a challenge because you do have these flowers showing and whatnot, but you just stick your whole hook in and put in your band, and if you just hold it taut, you can see your chain. And so it's the exact same. And when it's all complete, you can see, as I mentioned, the bottom of these are flat and they're 6mm. You can see them down the center. All right, so we want to go back down to the cap band, and we want to do the exact same thing on this side. So again, we don't want to start in the cap band, we want to start in the first chain link. And we pull one band through just to capture the chain and close it up. And you see that band is the one that lays behind the chain. And then when we add this second band, this will be the one that lies in front of the chain. Now we pull our next band through all 4 loops, and that's the band that sits behind the chain, and then we close that up. Add our next band that's going to act as the one in the front. So again, same exact as what we just did on the opposite side. Another thing is you want to watch that you don't twist the band in the center. Mine just got twisted, so I need to turn it and put it back on my hook. If it does, I mean, it's not like it's going to ruin your bracelet, but just for a neater appearance. And another thing is, it's always going to depend on what kind of bands that you use. If you're using silicone bands, you might have a little bit more of a challenging time because they're so sticky when you're pulling this band through and whatnot. But nevertheless, you'll still end up with the same result. Okay, so this is what you should see so far. Your bead will stick through and you'll see a line in between each one. And it's the same on this side once we fix it. So we'll go ahead and we'll chain up this side, and then we'll meet back for our second step. But before I let you go, our next border and final border is going to be where there is a seed bead on every other band. So you might want to go ahead and have those ready before we come back. So I think I counted 14 or 13, which would be like 26. But if you want a definite count, you just want to count every other band. You want to actually, these little lines in between here, you want to count those, and then you want to divide it by 2 and do every other one. That'll be your exact count for your bracelet. So I'm just going to use, they are a metallic 6/0 size seed bead, and so I'm going to take my threading tool, and I'm going to go back to black, but I'm going to use a silicone black. And seed beads, these have nice size holes. I've become a great fan of seed beads. Okay, so when you're putting your seed bead on, our rule of thumb is to always put it in the middle, right? Not with these. With this design, you want to put it like this, where it's a little bit left on the edge. If it's not going to hurt you. You'll just have to make sure that you have room to move your seed beads, but it just makes it a little bit easier when we go to loop them. And 100% for sure, you're going to touch these, so you want to make sure that they can slide nicely on your band, or you're going to snap a band. Okay, so let's go ahead. And by the way, I used this the white silk, and I used that emerald green 6/0 size seed bead for this one. All right, let's finish up, and then when we, okay, so we now have both sides done, and it may be a little crowded where you can hardly see your bead, but that will change once we add this last border. You can also take it and kind of separate it, but it's ultimately, excuse me, probably going to depend on what kind of bands you used and what size bead, if you have it crowding. But so this next step, I have ADD, which is attention deficit disorder. So I'm one of those people that can talk and then it's like, oh look, there's a butterfly, and then go back to looming and whatnot. So with that being said, we're going to add this border with our beads on the border, or it's every other band. And countless times, we have to do it every other band as a bead. And 3 times already, like I've either added 2 beads in a row or 2 plain bands, so I have to lay mine out like that while I'm doing the tutorial. So if you take your bracelet and you give it a little pull, you see all of those, and in my case, they're, we'll call it white, okay, because I have white and then my chain is black. Do you see all those white lines? All those, that's what we're going to be grabbing when we do this next step. So you want to be at your cap band end, and you want to make sure, which it's a little crowded in the beginning here, pull those sides away, and there is a band, and by band I mean it's 2 loops, you can see it's 1 band, but you can see it's 2 loops. So if you take your cap band, give it a little pull, they'll all fall into place. We want to stick our hook through just those 2 loops, okay? So we are not touching that single chain. And we want to take a plain band and pull that just through those first 2 loops there. Put it back on your hook, and then we want to do a slip knot, which pull that back band over the front. So we want to go to the next section in line, and we want to put our hook in between those 2 bands, just those 2, and then having that existing loop on the back there, making sure these 2 are not twisted. And now we want to take our beaded band, which we kind of made a little larger on one end. We want to place that on our hook, the larger end, and we just want to stick it through those first 2 loops on our hook. And we want to keep that bead to the right, so don't pull the bead through, and then close it up. And now we're going to do a slip stitch, which is taking these back 2 bands and pulling them over the front band, which is the hook. And then you want to pull them where they're over your seed bead. So now you could probably see why we wanted to have one end longer than the other on the seed bead. So this will be visible, but if for any chance that it's not, it's easy. We're going to fix it up at the end anyhow. Okay, so every other, now we're going to go through that next in line on there, and then we're going to grab a plain band, and it is the exact same all the way up the bracelet. Just going to pull 1 band through our first part and close it up. And now we're going to do a slip stitch again, which is taking the back 2 bands and pulling it over like that. Sorry. Okay. So next section, and then next will be a beaded band, only pulling it through the first 2 loops on our hook, not pulling through the bead, closing it up, and then a slip stitch and pull those bands over top of your bead. And grab the next in line, and this will be a plain band, pulling it through those 2, closing it up, and then a slip stitch again. So sometimes your bands are going to come over your seed bead. It's not an issue. You can pull it down and then maybe pull your seed bead up a little bit, or in the end we can fix that up. So I'll do a couple more, a little bit faster. Oops. Okay, so let's go ahead and finish that up all the way to the end. So that's what it should look like. It's just a nice little neat border. And as I mentioned, like, I'm watching how my seed beads are being hidden down there and the band's coming up. We'll fix those up now or at the end. This is why I suggested making sure that your beads can slide easy on your bracelet or on that band. Okay, so we'll finish up this side and we'll meet back to close up the second side. Okay, so in closing, I just went through my last link there, and the next one is where I did a slip stitch and put that band in that C-clip. So I'm just going to, because it's in size the same as where the C-clip is, take this beaded band and put it I can't ever you know the deal. Put it in your C-clip. Oh my gosh. Get in there. Okay. It just came out. But anyway, I'll fix it. Okay, so we want to come back down to this end and do the same. So I like to start out like that just to show you. Take your your cap band and you can push down and make sure you get the same one. So the big deal about doing this side is, as I mentioned earlier, making sure that you're doing the exact same bands that you did on this side so your beads match up. So we started out with a plain band. So whatever you started out with, make sure you start out with again. And then our next one. Always making sure you keep your bead to the right, and then just doing your slip stitch, and I do this every time. Okay, I make sure it's lined up before I go. It's so easy. I've done it 3 times where they didn't match up. I know you guys probably think I'm like, ugh, but I'm not afraid to say my mistakes. I don't want you guys to make mistakes that I have if I can help it. So I put my plain band in, grabbing the next one. Okay, so I'm going to take this one and I'm going to slide it up to the center of the band, because that's what I did to all of these on this right side. So that's another thing. If you slid your beads, like I took all of mine and I wanted them in the center of the band, so that's what I did. You're going to have to do the same on this side in order for it to match up as well, or like your bead might look like it's down a little bit. So just making precautions, making sure you guys. All right. And you see, I talk and look what happened. Did I do it right? No, I did it right. All right, so mine are matching up so far. It's looking good. I will say that I think I used my bead is too small and my bands are thick, so it does crowd the inside, but it still looks pretty. So let's go ahead and finish that up, and then we will meet back for closing. Okay, here is our finished bracelet. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial, and I hope your bracelet came out the way that you hoped for. I know for me, I bought a pack of these 6.0 no, I'm sorry, they weren't a pack. They were in like a little bag at Hobby Lobby of these seed beads, and did not realize that they had different sizes. So I may just take my border off and put all of the correct sizes on. Otherwise, I love it. So be sure to click on MsLoom's link below to Instagram and show her your appreciation for all of her great designs that she provides us. Again, this is called the Minerva bracelet. So be sure that you hashtag us on Instagram, Minerva bracelets, MsLoom, and Chodaro _bling. Thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more. Bye-bye.